All right, social media app Mastodon has been the main beneficiary of Elon Musk's madness. Can we call it madness? As the Twitter alternative has grown from 300,000 users in October all the way up to 2.5 million users as of November. Joining us now for more on what this means for Musk and the future of social media, let's bring in Karen North, USC Annenberg professor. Karen, we were talking about this yesterday. I have tried to sign up to Mastodon, as has many others, to try and explore. It's not exactly the easiest user interface, but what do you make of this migration that's been happening, and how much do we make of it?
I mean, the migration, I feel like, is much more of a protest than it is an actual, sort of bellwether of the future for Mastodon. Mastodon, as you said, has a very difficult user experience or user, figuring out how to do it. But the other thing is that all of the problems that we see with Twitter are sort of amplified the way that Mastodon has been designed as sort of a decentralized, no central control type of platform.
And for people who haven't tried to take a look at Mastodon, you basically, when you go in there, you have to pick a server that you're going to be on, versus on Twitter, you just sort of jump into the fray and can sort of navigate as you want, and the algorithm shows you different things. Is this an actual viable option at this point for people who are considering leaving Twitter?
At this point, personally, I do not think so. And I'll tell you what the problem is with it that I think people can really understand is that for those of you who have kids who play Minecraft and kids have their own servers, or for those of you who are concerned with or even use Bitcoin and you understand that it's all decentralized and individuals own servers and keep it running, that's how Mastodon works. It's decentralized. So if you want to go in and you want to cover the news in Ukraine, but you accidentally join a server that's all about My Little Pony, then what are you going to do? And when you look at the way that they moderate the content, which is a big concern right now with Twitter, it's moderated, by the people who are on that particular server. So each server is owned by somebody else, and each server has its own code of conduct and its own terms and conditions. So I'm not sure how that works for worldwide news and information.
So, today we're talking about Mastodon. Obviously, a lot of Twitter users moving in that direction. But even before all this, when, for example, former President Trump was banned, it was about, let's everybody who's, on the right move over to Parler. I mean, we have seen a lot of these other alternatives popping up. And I wonder if you think we're kind of at an inflection point when it comes to social media. Are we kind of past the days where everybody united on Twitter to talk about one topic and was able to do that in more of a civil way? Granted, it hasn't been the case in a while. Are we kind of past that when it comes to social media?
So if you want to talk about social media as like social networking and conversations, then, it does seem that we're in a time of the history where it's all echo chambers. People find their own people, their own voices, their own like-minded friends to have their own similar supporting conversations with. But when I look at Twitter, I think Twitter's been misbranded as a social network, and it's really an information and news network where people like you come to Twitter to get a heads up or a headline or a source or a quote for your stories, to build your stories. And it can be from the biggest people in the world, or it can be from people, in the fields, or people on the ground in Ukraine seeing something that we can't see, okay? And they share it, and then you can build your stories. And so the reason that Twitter is different than the others is that Twitter has a worldwide network of not only journalists and information providers, but it also has all of these people from everywhere that are willing to take a picture or write a post and say, hey, there's news here. And so we don't want to decentralize and send people to their own little echo chambers for news. We want something like Twitter where the world can upload information and people like you can then cultivate a story and tell us what we need to know.
And even for the historical value, the number of moments that were broken on Twitter by, people out in the field and really giving us an alert to some of these things that were happening. So then when we take a step back then and think, who are then the most notable runners-up to Twitter? Some people are gravitating towards Tumblr, but who would actually be the most viable option?
If you had trouble working with Mastodon, good luck trying to figure out how to provide news on Tumblr. Tumblr is phenomenal as a sort of digital media visual image gallery and curation system. But I mean, right now, I don't see, there are a bunch of efforts, and they're mostly new, and they've mostly, struggled as people have migrated over. They'll shut down for a day because they get hacked, or they'll shut down for a day because they have trouble with, abusive content, or for a whole variety of reasons. Twitter is as troubled as it is. And by the way, troubled in two ways: troubled because of just the sort of the way it's built, but also, and troubled financially. It's a platform that's been losing $4 million a day for quite some time before Elon Musk took it over. And then troubled also because of, the sort of speech that is, allowed there at times. But I think the best answer right now is to figure out how to rework Twitter, because Twitter has so many people from so many different walks of life that it allows, like I said, people like you, it allows journalists and other people who have audiences to find stories and tell us, the audience, about the world in ways that really matter. And yeah, you're right. Everything from like the Arab Spring to the birth of babies.
A very wide-ranging topic on the platform for sure. Karen North, USC Annenberg professor, appreciate you hopping on the show today. Thanks so much for your time.